Here's another show you can enjoy in the True Story FM family of entertainment podcasts.
Well, howdy, folks. My name is Lester Ryan Clark.
And I'm Keenan Diaz.
And we're the hosts of The Exorcist Minute, a show where we examine, extrapolate, and excavate the scariest movie of all time.
Each episode covers a single minute of William Friedkin's 1973 horror masterpiece, The Exorcist.
If you like deep dives, this show is the deepest.
Did you know the film's iconic theme song, Tubular Bells, wasn't written specifically for the movie?
Or that the 1973 audience members were throwing up and fainting in the theater before they ever got a glimpse of the demon?
Or what about all the crazy on-set mishaps, cast injuries, the director firing real guns?
Ooh. Ever wonder where Ouija boards came from or how they got their name? How about some history on the Catholic Church or the Roman rite of exorcism? Or maybe we can tempt you with some juicy demonology lore. Did you know that Pazuzu had an ex-wife? Find The Exorcist Minute on iTunes or Spotify or wherever you listen to your shows or at theexorcistminute.com. Until next time, folks,
the power of The Exorcist compels you.
All the Feelings presents Sins and Virtues. This episode...
Sloth.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Season 9. All the Feelings presents Sins and Virtues. I'm Pete Wright, and that over there is Tommy Metz III.
Hello, it's me. I was here the whole time. Wow.
Oh, my goodness. Are you ready for Season 9?
No, as we've just been talking about before we started recording, the last thing I said was, ooh, I just got the episode 1 shivers because I'm desperately trying to remember how this works, why people seem to sometimes like it.
Yeah.
I'm looking at my notes for my segment. They are completely out of order and crazy. But I'm very excited for our, for lack of a better term, theme for this season. Instead of just...
Why is that?
Well, because we started with just anxiety. And spoiler alert, back in What's That Smell days, spoiler alert, my segment has a lot to do with my anxiety. So I'm throwing out like a welcoming hand to people that maybe skipped over last season.
Yeah.
But last season we changed to WTS Presents All the Feelings because we realized instead of just talking about anxiety, we want to talk about the human experience and all the different emotions that go into that. And we stumbled on envy and pride as two of them. And I'm almost certain it was your idea. You're like, you know what? Those are also sins of the deadly kind. What if we did a whole season discussing, what's more human than sins and virtues, Pete?
Yeah.
And they're all laid out for us.
Well, it's like we've got 2,000 years of a show outlined for this season. I think it's really interesting to look at, not just because we're not religious scholars, right? I think we'll do our best.
Yeah,
we'll
I've read the Bible, and that's not a joke.
Yeah, me too.
Whole,
I've read believe it or not, I did the Bible on audiobook.
Nice.
It's fine. How else are you gonna? It's a lot of. Those pages are very flimsy and they tear when you touch them. So the audiobook is really great. And so like, I understand that. And I understand Dante and I understand, I had the Hieronymus Bosch painting painted on my ceiling in preparation for this. So I go to sleep looking at it every night.
What, the trifecta?
Yeah, they're in the garden of
earthly delights.
Is that what it is? Yeah,
earthly delights.
Of delights,
Yeah.
Earthly delights. There are people who like having sex with giant hummingbirds. If you look real close in that one, it's not right.
And then you get to hell. All right,
am I right? And so I think the thing that was provocative for me in looking at the 7 deadly sins and the 7 heavenly virtues,
of which, of note, I did not know of the 7.
Right.
I'd never heard of that term until you brought it up.
Yes. Well, interesting, right?
Yeah.
They don't get as much play.
No.
But I think what's so interesting about that is not to look at the history per se of those things, but to look at how we interpret them today, right? Based on modern emotional constraints. How do we relate to this thing that has been frowned upon since the Egyptians, right? Like this is... how do we interpret? How do we live with those things? And what matters when you talk about these? And so,
because back when they were written, like today's episode, what else was there than this deadly sin that we will be introducing very soon?
Exactly. And you know what? So when you think of it, so I did look at some things.
Pete,
right? I'm a reader.
Pete,
Come on.
Oh, you're such a reader.
So when you look at like the Egyptians and the Greeks and the Romans, it seems like they collected around three, right? Murder, theft, and adultery. Like if you do those three things, you you start losing body parts.
Yeah.
That's pretty much it. And it was the Christians, right, who said, you know what, I think we can feel guilty about a lot more if we really work at it. We can come up with more things. And it was actually the Christian theologian Gregory of Nyssa who identified the 8 evil thoughts or passions that could lead to sin, including pride, envy, anger, sadness, fear, desire, greed, and gluttony.
So sadness being the outlier.
Yeah. Now it's okay to be sad.
Right.
You don't have to, that's not a thing. In the 4th century CE, the Christian monk Evagrius Ponticus developed the concept of the 8 evil thoughts, right? And here we have, we get to hear Pete speak a different language. This was gastromargia. What do you think that is?
Gastro, so eating too much.
That's right. Porphyria.
No idea. Oh, being too nothing. I got
Lust.
Oh, sure.
Philageria.
Okay.
Love of money. Lipa, sadness. Orge, anger. Acadia, sloth. Canodoxia, vainglory. And hyperophania, pride.
Wait, what was vainglory?
Canodoxia, vanity.
Oh, vanity. Got it. Okay.
Yeah. So that was, that's the 4th century. We go into Thomas Aquinas and the 7 capital vices, and that's where we get pride, greed, lust, wrath, gluttony, envy, sloth.
Got it.
And those have been canonized in the movie 7, as everybody knows.
Which, if you haven't heard our regrettable trailer, go listen to it now. One of us is a super fan of that movie and desperately needed to.
It's fantastic.
Yes.
So his Aquinas's book Summa Theologica kind of laid out the 7 deadly sins for Western Christian tradition, and that's what starts this whole thing. But I feel like when I look at our topic today, sloth, I don't see the same sloth that Aquinas was talking about, that the early theologians were talking about. So what's your relationship with these 7 deadly sins? You are a reformed religious fellow.
Religious.
You were raised.
Yep.
Yeah. Do you still carry the weight of the moral impacts of the 7 deadly sins?
Well, maybe only in like a karmic kind of thing. I don't necessarily believe in karma as like a real power, but there is a common sense part of karma, which is do bad things happen you. I really trimmed it down, which is it. So many of these are also involved with our laws. Mm-hmm. Like you shouldn't do these things, not because they're morally wrong, but because you'll also get in trouble. But I generally like people to like me, and I like money is fun. And so all of these things, if you follow these rules, then for the most part, but like certain things,
and you'll get rich. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, equals profit. But certain things like the idea of feeling lust, I think is totally fine. Like acting on it is different. There is consent and things like that. So, I don't think they naturally fold into my moral compass. I don't know which came first, but it just seems to make very easy common sense.
Yeah.
To follow these rules, to try to lean towards the heavenly virtues and steer away from the deadly sins, not because I believe they are deadly, but because they're either bad for you or bad for other people.
This is really interesting to me, because I think when you just speaking writ large of the 7 deadly sins and the moral impact, like I agree with you about the common sensedness of it, right? Because I believe we live in a society, right?
Oh, what's up, Joker?
I know. But we live in a place where adaptation for goodwill matters. And I sometimes resent the fact that belief system runs parallel with religious belief. Did
we really need that part in it? That's interesting.
Right.
Sure.
how about we just do the right thing,
Right.
and we not need to, it doesn't need to be backed by any sort of worship. It can just be the right thing because we like fellow humans and we want them to thrive, and we
Right.
want people to have food and healthcare and all of these things. And we like to contribute to society, right? We wake up in the morning and we're like, what are we going to do with our day after we're done, eating all the Cheerios and Ho-Hos and playing our video games?
Yeah.
We're going to contribute somehow, right?
Right.
That's the idea.
It's golden rule
And
stuff.
yeah, it really is. And so when you talk about like which came first, the doctrine or the goodwill, I'm on team goodwill every time.
Sure.
I recognize that comes without decades of study on which actually came first. That's just how it sort of feels. I don't feel like I'm like guided by morality necessarily
Right.
to do right.
Yeah, and this is not meant to dump on religion at all.
No.
But sometimes religion, or early religious texts and scribes started potentially as a survival manual.
Yeah.
They were giving us rules that we needed in order to live in society that didn't have refrigeration, didn't have like all of these things. So you had rules about what to eat when and how to do things and how to do stuff. And then spirituality was sort of laid upon it. All right. Well,
Which is what's interesting about Sloth, because Sloth.
Well, yeah. Should we introduce Sloth real quick?
Let's do it.
I mean, what are we talking about?
I
Take it
don't
away.
even know.
Take it away, robot.
Sloth, noun. Reluctance to work or make an effort. Laziness.
Okay, do you agree with Robot?
I do. I think that's right.
Here's the thing that's interesting to me. Can I
Yeah,
just tell you
of
another
course.
little factoid? When we talk about 4th century sloth, it was spiritual laziness.
Oh, that makes sense.
The thing they were worried about more than anything else was that this apathy was turning away from God. Lack of concern for one's spiritual well-being. So maybe you go home and you farm all the livelong day, but you're not saying thanks be to God as a result of it. You're not going to church. Then that was the original definition of sloth. Sloth was not like, I need more weed.
Right. That's interesting. And I think it's, personally, I think that not being slothful, it's more important to take it away from worship and put it towards helping out your fellow man, or like you said, contributing, being a contributing member of society.
But isn't it interesting that the slothful individual was seen as like neglecting spiritual duties and responsibilities without any sort of discernment for, what they were doing elsewise in their day-to-day life? I think that's fascinating.
That is very fascinating.
Yeah.
I guess that's what made it deadly.
Yeah.
Because it was involved with going to the afterlife.
Yeah. Stagnation leads to rot.
Right.
Right. And when you're talking about spiritual rot, or, today, stagnation leads to the other things that define kind of emotional rot, right? Depression, anxiety, fear, those sorts of things. So I think that's a really interesting thing. When you look at the relationship of sloth to modernity, right, to your life day to day, how does it hit you? Do you notice when you're slothful?
I'm not usually. Well, I'm going to be talking about that a little bit in my segment.
So you want to hide it.
I'm saying, why buy the juice if the cow free milk? I don't know that phrase. But no, I'm generally not a slothful person. Well, it depends on how you define sloth, because when I'm rarely ever vegging out. I'm not good at that. I'm deeply absorbed in something. But if you call reading a book for pleasure or playing a video game sloth, then I'm slothful. But I would say that's only if I'm doing it when I should be doing something else. What I'm saying is I don't just sit and scroll through my phone. I don't do traditional or cliched things of sloth, because those things don't interest me. I like playing games. I like solving mystery boxes. All the things that make me a nerd are things that but I'm actively involved in them. So I don't count that as sloth.
Well, and that's the interesting thing, because I think there's a degree of subjectivity to defining how we judge others and against our perception of laziness, right?
Right.
And are you a slothful individual while you are because you are not contributing in a capitalist fashion? right? Because you're not working enough days, because you don't participate in hustle culture, right? Is that the equivalent of today's culture, like culture of sloth?
I think that's what America and advertising wants us to think. Yes,
sure.
I think that's the capitalistic aim. And I mean, there are commercials that make me feel very upset that I'm not weirdly drenched in morning dew while doing backflips off of a tree at 2 a.m. because I'm just doing it or whatever. I mean, yeah, I don't think that should be the way that it is. I don't think that should be what sloth is. Doing something, absorbing something that doesn't make any money is not slothful, in my opinion.
Right. Well, and this was really interesting timing as we record this, when just this Sunday I was watching my real old person show, CBS Sunday Morning, right square in that septuagenarian demo. Yeah. And they had Susan Spencer did a whole profile on the benefits of laziness, right? And the act of reclaiming the word, there's a lot of research being done right now on like the value of turning off and being lazy, not as a derogatory term. And when you look at the most productive people throughout history, they celebrated the fact that they worked no more than 4 hours a day, contributing to their capitalist ends. And the rest of the time they were thinking and writing and reading and walking and doing the things that were non-attributable to their capitalist ends, right? To making a living, to hustling. Right. And today, that's hard to find, right? Particularly in the West. We're doing a terrible thing to our bodies and ourselves, which leads to overwhelm and depression and anxiety and hopelessness and despair and disconnection and withdrawal by constantly focusing on the capitalist answer to slothfulness.
That's a really interesting point. No, that makes a lot of sense. I hadn't thought about it that way, the dangers of that, especially in a gig economy where there's you're also robbed of stability. Right. And there's no real end to it. There's always going to be more gigs. There's always going to be more things, with the risk of it always drying up all at one point. So that's terrifying. Yeah.
It is terrifying. It's terrible.
Just a scramble.
Yeah. So I'm with you. Like I really enjoy the idea of taking significant breaks. I don't think I'm a slothful individual, but I do feel like there's a benefit to capitalist contribution on your own terms, right?
Yep.
Like I like to work. Okay. I like to work. I hate working when everyone else is working. Sure. It's one of the things that gives me actual anxiety, is the fact that while I'm working, somebody else might be thinking about what I'm working on. I would love being nocturnal. Don't you think? Like there would be, old Nocturnal Pete. That's how I want to be known. And
that's going to work out great. In your neighborhood.
I'm sleeping while everybody else is thinking about work. Yeah. And then at night when it's quiet, I just contribute. That's how I want it to be.
You're like a little elf man. That's amazing. You're going around the neighborhood fixing everybody's shoes. Yeah.
And all of my money is made through Patreon. It's just sign up. Yep. If you want old Nocturnal Pete, it's got to be old apostrophe Nocturnal Pete. I got to make some business cards. There's a QR code that just goes to a field of flowers. It's just a live stream.
Yeah.
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 So I think that's actually really interesting. And I was most surprised at the number of people who are doing, the number of institutions that are doing active research in their departments of psychology on the concept of sloth and its relationship to all of these other things, shame, self-criticism, and all of these pieces that seem like a natural output of the way we judge ourselves.
Right.
Against this moral code that has been around for thousands of years. And I just can't help but wonder, is it relevant?
Well, it is. I mean, some would say, based on what you said about the original idea, wasn't go out there and make that money. It was spend time worshiping, being with yourself and worshiping something higher than you. So in a way, we bastardized sloth. The original idea was stop making all that money, stop doing all that hustle, and instead think about a power that is higher than you and give devotion to it, which now we would actually see as sloth. I'm not calling prayer sloth, but I mean stopping the hustle, stopping doing all of those things and just concentrate on something other than yourself. That's interesting that we made it. We ruined sloth.
We ruined sloth. And now we feel guilty about something that we never, it's quoting one of my favorite movies. This is interest paid on a debt that never comes due.
That's right. That's right. Frozen. No, is that?
That's not the movie.
Oh, okay. It was my first
Spanish
guess.
Prisoner, Tom.
I love Spanish Prisoner. Mammoth.
Yes. There you go.
Okay.
I'm going to leave it to Frozen and just do a hard cut. Let people think you just know it as Frozen. So I think if we're going to boil it down, and I just want to boil it down for those who are like me and sort of wonder about the relevance of sloth. This is the thing that I think is going to be most interesting about this season, Tom.
Oh,
is that I come at this thinking, I'm not motivated by doctrine, right? Like I'm not motivated by these kinds of things. And yet, in many ways, this sort of independent creation of doctrine, like our own sort of guiding mindfulness practices, whatever language you want to use, is sort of the answer to it, right? And what these institutions like the Institute for Living and the Center for Study of Emotions and Wellbeing in Australia and the Oxford Center for Emotions and Effective Neuroscience, like these organizations are finding that the answer is figuring out how to rekindle a sense of purpose and meaning, right? That you don't necessarily have to practice a prayerful ritual. You have to engage in activities that bring fulfillment and direction. That can be anything,
right?
But you have to somehow cultivate the spirit of joining, right? Be a part of something that is more than just yourself. You can engage in spiritual practices, but they don't have to be going to prayerful service. They can be, forest bathing. You could just make a practice of going out and walking in the woods. You can just sort of nurturing relationships with your landscape, with your community, and with your environment. And I think that's really interesting. And all of that comes down to one final point, which is figuring out how to listen to your own inner wisdom. Those are the words. They seem a little hoo-ha to me.
Yeah.
But really, it's saying, hey, part of feeling disconnected, part of feeling overwhelmed and disconnecting from society, from work, from engagement, is a broken muscle for instinct and intuition.
Because you're just listening to what everyone else is telling you to do, or what the aforementioned advertising is telling you what you do, or right.
And you have to
know what you need.
Yeah. And you have to relearn how to listen to it.
Right.
I think that's really cool. I think that is actually one of the greatest lessons of this of this exploration of what sloth is. Like, we live in a creator economy where why are they creating any more creators? Right. Why do we continue to create? Is it because we love what we're creating? For some, yes. For others, because the algorithm demands it. Right. So I think rediscovering why we create and what it is we create, and trying to figure out how to build a livelihood that is purposeful is the antidote to self-judgment of sloth. That's the whole thing.
Well, another option. What if we can be everyone's inner voice? That if we'll be having a segment about Feeling Friends later, but if you sign up for Feeling Friends and put a little on the top, Pete and I will be your inner voice and tell you.
You just gave me, we haven't talked about classic WTS, now ATF products in a long time.
No.
But I think you just came up with a service product. Here's the thing I don't think people are doing anymore. 800 numbers, Tom.
Oh, that's right.
What if we had some form of an 800 number where people could call and just get you and me recorded voices giving them inner wisdom?
Right. But it'll have to be so fortune cookie, because we won't know exactly what you're going through. So it'll be like, hey, what you're doing there, keep it up.
It's awesome. Hey, this struggle is always met better with ice cream.
Interesting. We could actually also, what would be cool is just really pretentious facts that we think we're coming up with. at the time. Like I have this new character where he's really pretentious and he thinks he's saying something for the first time, but he's really dumb. And you want to hear it?
Of course.
Okay. Sometimes, I don't know if it's just me, but I think these corporations, they're just in it for the money. Think about it. Like if you heard that at a party, you'd be like, great thought, Todd.
Yeah.
Thanks for blowing the lid off of capitalism.
I gotta go get some more ring dings.
Yeah. Oh, we're out of ring dings? I'm going to go get some anywhere else. Yeah.
That's good. I like Todd.
Well, hi, kids, and welcome back to another episode of your favorite show, Animal Roundup. And this week, our furry friend is none other than the slowest of pokes himself, the Sloth. Have you heard of a sloth before? Great! Sloths are slow and like hanging out in trees, but here are 4 other facts about our 3-toed pals that I found on the internet. Want to hear them now? Great! Sloth fact number 1. Because they have 2 extra vertebrae in their neck, a sloth can turn its head around 270 degrees. I hate that! Sloth fact number 2. Sloths can fall 100 feet without injury. Sloths are designed to fall out of trees, and they fall out of them once a week on average. What? That's stupid. And who wrote that? What does it mean to be, quote, designed to fall out of trees, end quote? Better luck next time, ChatGPT. Sloth fact number 3. Sloths have been around since the Ice Age. Back then, they were known as megatheriums and were the size of elephants. That's terrifying! And finally, sloth fact number 4. Sloths only defecate once a week, and they have to climb down the tree to do it, leaving themselves vulnerable to predators. Pooping only once a week and it's super dangerous? I would make a terrible sloth. Also, hey sloth, instead of taking that long trip climbing down, how about you pop a squat the next time you fall out of the tree, you idiot? Well, we all learned a little bit more about God's furry mistake, the sloth. Did you have as much as fun as I did? Great! And hey, while I have you, are you looking for something special every week that you can enjoy from the safety of your own tree? Then why not subscribe and become a feeling friend today? For the low one-time price of just $35, you can join our forest of members that are already receiving a veritable jungle of perks, including early access to episodes, special member-only content before every episode, and even specialer member-only whole episodes. Plus, you get access to our Discord, an ATF bingo card you can use to play along with every show, stickers, and so much more. So use your claws to type on over to our website at allthefeelings.fun. Yes, allthefeelings.fun, and become a feeling friend today. And now, back to the show. Peter, Rita, I'm glad that we are starting with Sloth because, as we sort of talked about during your segment, I started thinking about myself and how I don't consider myself a slothful person in general. In part, it's because I don't know, listeners can let us know right in. I think I've mentioned that I am an anxious person. Okay. It's a fun skit I'm writing. And so it can be hard for me to just sort of veg out. I'm usually diving into something or some type of hobby or project that I get consumed by. But then, after thinking back, there are a few times that I was supremely slothful, and I mean like absolute sloth time. But it was for a potentially interesting reason. Because in a way, it was because I was moving so fast that I was completely still. I know that sounds like a riddle, and I will.
Sounds like the Flash.
Yeah, and I will explain. But first, it also made me think of someone I met recently and what he was doing with his accordion. Pete, are you hooked, Pete?
I'm so hooked.
Starship Troopers, do you want to know more?
Yes, sir.
All
yes,
right.
sir.
Well, let me set the scene for this harrowing tale. So there's a Trader Joe's. Are Trader Joe's everywhere?
Pretty much.
Okay, so it's like, how would you for those that don't have a Trader Joe's? It's like
it's your grocery store,
like a boutique little grocery store that's too small and serves a bunch of things that they
parking is terrible.
And parking is on purpose terrible. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So for the last 2 weeks, there has been a man sitting in a chair by the parking lot exit, and he's playing an accordion, and he's wailing on it, like as much as you can do with an accordion, playing really, really fast, this really catchy, twisty medley. It kind of goes like, I can't do accordions. Well, with his permission, I recorded it. And so, Pete, Hit that dope track.
I feel like I know the song.
Do you? It sounds very familiar, but I wonder if every song on an accordion sounds familiar.
It's Jason Mraz. It
is not Jason Mraz.
It's 100%.
I absolutely disagree.
I am singing
viewers
it
write in. Okay, here we go. And I loved it. And I threw some money in his money bag. What do you call it?
Is it the Monopoly guy?
No, like I threw money in his bindle. No, what do you call it when tip, like a tip bag, tip jar.
It's like tip hat, right?
Yes. And I walked into Trader Joe's and an employee that was by the entrance saw me as I walked in, indicated the accordion player, and said under her breath, "Sorry about that. It's awful." And I was really surprised. I thought it was really cool. And it was certainly different. Yeah. Anyways, 3 days later, I went to that same shopping center, not to go to TJ's, but across from it, there's this Japanese market called Farm Boy, which is really good. I think I've mentioned it maybe on the show. The coolest thing about Farm Boy, other than the delicious food inside, is the big sign out front says Farm Boy Sushi and Frozen Yogurt. And the first time I went in there, I asked about their frozen yogurt, and they looked at me like I was insane. And there is no frozen yogurt anywhere in the market. So I don't know what they thought that sign meant, or if they used to have frozen yogurt. No one knows.
Okay, but wait, next time you go in, you have to look for a beverage that I think will light you up. It's called Pocari Sweat.
Gross.
Yeah. I used to drink that stuff by the gallon. It's like watermelon Gatorade. It's a very strange thing, but I am super addicted to it.
Wait, is this a real thing?
Yeah.
A drink called Sweat?
Pocari Sweat.
I thought this was like a bit. Why would you name it?
I have no motive to mess around with you right now. I am so serious about my Pocari Sweat.
You are shaking with anger and seriousness. Oh my God. You are beet red about this Pocari Sweat.
I love Pocari. It's blue.
Okay.
I love it. All right, go ahead.
Anyway, so I'm going into Farm Boy, and that guy was there again on his chair playing the accordion. And I realized...
On the Farm Boy side?
Well, it's all the same move. There's just one big thing.
All right.
And I realized two things right then. Number one, I think I like the accordion, which is a sentence I never thought I'd say. And number two, I recognized the tune. It was the one he was playing before, and it was so delightful, I crossed over and threw in a few more bucks. And I was walking into Farm Boy, I wondered what the odds were of being there when he happened to be playing that same song, if he's there all day. I went into the Farm Boy, and this is all true, overheard two of the employees complaining about the accordionist. Accordionist? Yeah. Again, he's making people so unhappy, and I cannot figure out why.
Why?
This is all coming to something. Some of our listeners are probably ahead of me, but this weekend, I went back to the Trader Joe's because I had to pick up a bottle of wine for a friend's dinner, and there he was. And then I realized the third thing, why everyone was so unhappy. He's playing the same tune, Pete.
Oh.
He only knows that one song. And it's not really a song. You heard what you played. It's just like one snippet over and over again. There's no bridges. There's no anything. And I sat there sort of behind him, so I wasn't like stealing focus or anything, and he just played it over and over. And these poor employees are listening to this broken record for hours a day. And it never occurred to me. Why am I bringing this up? Because in a way, can this be seen as a mixture of really fast movement and effort, but also sloth at the same time? He's out there working and his fingers are flying over those keys, so that's work. But he never bothered to learn more than that one tiny snippet of song. Isn't that sloth, to do just the bare minimum and stop there and not move forward and ask to be rewarded for it? It's like this aggressive laziness. And I just love what does dichotomy mean? Two things that seem to not go together. I like that dichotomy of that. What do you think?
Yeah, it's like cognitive dissonance, right? I have to be able to hold this idea that here's a guy who is supremely talented,
right?
But just in a very narrow context.
Yeah, you just learned that one thing. and never moved forward. That's just
okay. So you have to look at it from his perspective as a business model, right? The people who are working at those stores, he probably doesn't care about them. He cares about you.
And I'm only there for that snippet, and it fooled me twice. Shame on me.
Twice.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So I think that's actually
a good
really
point. I
interesting.
didn't think about that. That really,
Right?
he's just doing like I'm his elevator music.
Yes.
If the elevator can be playing the same 2 seconds of music all day, and no one will know except the person that has to work in the elevator.
Yeah. This is why elevator operators are gone, because they couldn't handle the music. It just was too repetitive.
Right.
I think that's actually really, I mean, on his perspective, that's a real that would not get him fired from The Apprentice, because it's like so stupid,
right,
and so limited, but profitable. I'll bet he's doing okay.
I didn't even think about that his audience is so ephemeral that he can get away from it. But still, it seems like a lot of talent that he is keeping in a bottle. And there's something slothful about that to me.
Totally. And you wonder, like, maybe this is his expression of hyperfocus or fixation, right? Maybe he knows a lot more songs, but he just likes this one the most.
How can that be true? How can you do that for like an hour? Just do the same thing over and over again? That's madness.
It's a meditation. I don't know what it's like to play the accordion, man.
Maybe
meditation. He's in a like transcendental state. Like, I don't know.
It's like tantric.
What happens? Yeah, it's tantric accordion. This guy is having a 6-hour-long orgasm, is what you don't know. Is like he plays the next chord and his eyeballs are going to fall out of his head.
Oh,
right?
I drive by and I look over at the camera and I say, I'll have what he's having. I'll play what he's playing.
Did we answer your sloth question?
I think so, because now I want to go back to me. You remember I started this whole thing by saying moving so fast that I'm completely still.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, we're going all the way back to 2014. There is a chance I have talked about this, but I'm talking about it in a different way now. Oh, and the chance that we bring up things that we've talked about before, listeners, buckle in.
Yeah, non-zero.
This season is 9. And that doesn't mean no. Okay. I had just finished, in 2014, I had just finished shooting a short film. So I had a mountain of footage to go through and to start the editing process. And something happened. I couldn't do it. It started as just basic approach avoidance. I was really nervous. I was scared of the footage. I didn't know. I had filmed some of it myself, my own camera operator, and I was scared of what I had, what I didn't have, putting it together, failing everyone that had worked on it. It was this kind of project where there was a whole lot of people involved for a very short amount of times. So there's a lot of people to let down. And so I put it off. And again, and again. And every time my anxiety the next day was exponentially higher. And this led to what I am calling my period of sloth, or as I called it at the time, for lack of a better term, because I was not really functioning, I called it covers. And I called it covers because
you were under them?
Yes, because my therapy, and I didn't know that what I was doing was compression therapy. I didn't know but I brought out every blanket and every kind of heavy thing that I had, and I would lay out on my couch under all of that, because my mind was moving so fast and my hands were shaking whenever I would go near the keyboard. I was so amped up that I stopped moving, and I just laid on the couch for days, and I was feeling the weight. And that was the only thing. I was fluctuating between hot and cold. I probably also had malaria. I don't know. And it was like that for 4 whole days. I could barely eat. I wasn't really sleeping, which compounded the weirdness. And I was having trouble concentrating on whenever I was trying to watch. Reading was way too passive. I couldn't do that. And so I was stuck. So again, so much movement connected to so much non-movement. And it is a thing. I don't think this is exactly what I had, but there is something called, I looked it up, anxiety paralysis. Mm-hmm. That in effect, you are revved up so hard that it's like, what was the film Awakenings about? Were they moving so fast that they couldn't move anymore? It was Robert De Niro and Robin Williams, and they were like stuck. Yeah. They were like mannequin people. And I thought part of it was they were shaking so fast that eventually they just freeze up. I desperately should have looked up that movie before bringing it up.
Wow. Yeah, I know. I mean, I've watched it more recently. I don't remember the moving so fast they couldn't freeze up, but it was the thing where they could like catch a baseball, but they couldn't communicate.
But they couldn't. I naturally paint myself as a Robert De Niro type, so maybe that's just why I made that jump.
Could you just give us a quick impression?
Yeah, sure. Are you talking to me? It's pretty good, right?
Yeah.
I'm walking here. That's not even Robert De Niro. I switched over to Dustin Hoffman. I'm walking here, Rain Man. And that wasn't the line either. He didn't call out his own character. And so that's just another, I don't really have like a big lesson other than, I mean, how I got out of it was I finally forced myself to reach out to someone, to a very good friend of the show, Nikki, who then said, you need to really talk to someone, who led me to, avid listeners, say it with me, the wonderful Bonnie, my therapist, who then also said, you need some medical intervention to start, takes a little bit of medication to stop the cycle.
Yeah. Right.
And then look at the illustrious and beautiful woman I am today. So I don't know why I said that. Anyway, so that's how that ended. But I just wanted to point that out again, how sloth can come from different places.
This is what's so fascinating to me, because when we open up talking about like the sort of modern interpretation of sloth, and then you just experience it, right? It's that complete overwhelm, disconnection, avoidant anxiety.
Yeah.
And that's what it looks like. And I think that's the problem when you have a limited capitalist view of this moral failing that is sloth.
Right.
When it's not. It's a mental health challenge, right? It is an indicator of how well you're performing at relating to the world around you. And it's dangerous and sad and terrifying, and it's okay. Right. It's okay to ask for help. It's not something to be heavily judged. I think the stereotype of what we have of people who are slothful is not at all what it really is anymore. It's a different thing.
Great. And now Laziness by Robert William Service.
Let laureates sing with rapturous swing of the wonder and glory of work. Let puppeteers preach with the passion impeach the indolent wretches who shirk. No doubt they are right in the stress of the fight. It's the slackers who go to the wall. So though it's my shame, I perversely proclaim, it's fine to do nothing at all. It's fine to recline on the flat of one's spine with never a thought in one's head. It's lovely to lay staring up at the sky when others are earning their bread. It's great to feel one with the soil and the sun, drowned deep in the grasses so tall. Oh, it's noble to sweat, pounds and dollars to get, but it's grand to do nothing at all. So sing to the praise of the fellows who laze, instead of lambasting the soil, the vagabonds gay who lounge by the way, conscientious objectors to toil. But lest you should think, by the spatter of ink, the muses still hold me in thrall, I'll round out my rhyme, and until the next time, work like hell, doing nothing at all.
We did it, Pete. One episode down.
Oh my gosh, I'm exhausted.
I know.
I need to be a real layabout.
Season 9 is off and running. Thank you all so much for joining us for this episode. What are we talking about next week, Pete?
Next week, Tom, we're talking about the first of our heavenly virtues. That's charity.
Oh, like I gave to that lazy accordionist.
Twice.
Twice. Boy, oh boy. Thank you all so much for joining us for this episode. This week's tune is I Want You to Stay by Sun River.
Until next week, I'm Pete Wright.
And I'm Tommy Metz III. Thank you so much for downloading. We'll be back next week with all the feelings, sins, and virtues.
Lightning, lightning.
I want you to stay, honey, I want you what this could be.